Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. Finding Brave today. How are you? Kathy Caprino here. This is the second amazing interview I've done today. So I feel like so darn blessed to be in the Finding Brave world. And I'm so excited to have the amazing, inspiring Pete Mockaitis with us.
Hello.
Hello, Pete. Thank you for taking the time. I know
Oh,
you've
thank you,
got
Kathy.
little
Great
ones
to be
running
here.
around and I want to tell you people, I was on Pete's show. How to Be Awesome at Your Job is the title, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got that right. And holy cow. Well, you're going to hear about this, but you probably have more downloads than I've ever heard of a
Oh, I'm
podcast.
flattered.
And it
Thank
was
you.
such a fun talk. You know, when you do this a lot, there's some people that kind of just show up and ask questions, but they're not really listening. And I thought
Right.
we had a really rich conversation. So I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you. Well, I thought so too, and so I was pleased to chat with Kathy some more.
All right. And we are talking about a very different topic. I have not covered this in 142 or 45 episodes, and it is how to reclaim your time by strategically, and I'm going to throw in affordably outsourcing. Such an important issue. And Pete's going to talk all about it, but there's so much resistance to it. There's so much confusion about it. There's so many missteps I think we take doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have so much to learn from you. Can't wait. But everybody, let me tell you about Pete. Pete Mockaitis is an award-winning trainer and coach who helps professionals perform optimally. That doesn't roll off the tongue so well at work. His work has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, Inc., and more. Pete has delivered one-on-one coaching to over 700 leaders, hailing from world-class organizations such as Google, FedEx, Amazon, Apple, Anheuser-Busch, and the United Nations. Oh, I'd love to hear about that. 50 countries and every Ivy League university. Fascinating. He began his career at Bain and Company and currently hosts the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast. So this is the number, people. The show has been downloaded over 13 million times and consistently ranks as the top business show in Apple Podcasts. And you live in Chicago with your two little babies and your wife.
That's
How
right.
how old are they again?
About 2.5 and 1.5.
That's a lot. That's a lot of baby. How do you seem so calm? You're just
Oh,
exhausted.
well, it's just fake it. It's a total sham.
See? So honest. I get it. I live that world. All right. Pete, I have to say, we have a prep sheet that guests fill out. And I love that because it's what they want to talk about. But you have 3 key bullets and other guests write those bullets and I read them and know, okay, well, this is what we got to focus on. But I want to read out loud your 3
I'm
bullets.
flattered. Thank you.
And I want to riff on those if we could and do more. So number 1, Pete says, it takes courage to let go of tasks and give to another. The first hurdle is your own internal resistance. Build in safeguards. I mean, I feel like, why didn't I talk to you 10 years ago? But because darn it, did it take me a long time to do this. Number 2, when hiring, don't just have them tell you what they can do, but rather show you what they can do. Oh, you know what? I read that wrong. When I first read it, I thought it was, don't you just tell them what to do, you show them what to do. But you mean the other way,
I
don't
think
you?
it's true that way as well
I was
in
like,
terms of your
oh,
onboarding
how
folks.
am
Yeah.
I not showing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I wasn't. Number 3, I relied on this type of help to build Pete says, to build my show from 0 to 13 million downloads. And I trust them with just about everything. Okay, I got to learn. So I'm going to ask you the questions I need to understand.
All right.
What is this internal resistance we have? And we're talking entrepreneurs here, right? Or anybody's launching anything, a podcast, anybody who needs help. We're
Yeah. Well,
right.
I guess I think about it from an entrepreneurial perspective myself, but I think it's true of folks in all kinds of roles. And, I mean, I think we can have trouble, internal resistance, letting go of any number of responsibilities and asking for some help. Maybe it's help cleaning your house. Maybe it's help taking care of your kids. Maybe it's help doing some recruiting or any number of jobs or pieces of work that need to get done in your professional employed life. it takes courage. And when you are accustomed to doing something yourself, to then let go and invite someone else to take it on, that could be challenging.
Well, I want to tell you, I was looking for the actual number. This issue is power gap number 3 of the 7 damaging power gaps professional women face, of reluctance to ask for what you want and deserve.
Yes.
So I know why women do that. And The Most Powerful for You, the book talks about, when you can't ask for what you want, and it's all that you said, help from your spouse, help from your grown children. Look, you're living here now during the pandemic. Could you cook a meal? Could you, do your own laundry? But it's also, I think, understanding, when should I stop being a perfectionistic overfunctioner? When am I doing too much? And that for women is particularly hard. But can you talk about, so you're saying we have a resistance. Is it that we are afraid to let, like you said, I trust my people with just about everything. Are people afraid to hand over important tasks because we're afraid others are going to blow it? What is it? What's going on? Why we don't outsource? Why we
Yeah.
don't get VAs and all sorts of help?
I don't think there's any number of points of resistance there. I mean, for one, I think that, we tend to do things that we find to be important, and then to stop doing them, it feels off. It feels a little iffy in terms of, and the fears can be numerous. Like,
Right.
are they going to do it right? Am I going to be, am I going to lose touch in terms of, and forget how to do these things myself? Are my skills going to atrophy? Am I really the kind of person who outsourced their cleaning? Like, will I no longer be
I'll be
self-sufficient,
that
self-reliant?
guy. I'll
I'm
be
not
that.
one of those rich people, or who are going to have their butlers in their mansions, and that's
Wow.
not who I am. Or are they going to do it right, or the way I would do it, or up to my standards? Are they going to embarrass me, or screw something up in a way that is sort of irrecoverable and disastrous and embarrassing? And we can very easily create these nightmare scenarios in our own imaginations.
Can I bring it home to a real situation?
Mm-hmm.
When I look at what's hard for me to outsource, it wouldn't be something like podcast editing because I don't know how to do it. It won't be reaching out to my guests with an email confirming, here's your link, because I know, I don't have particular talents with that. But when it comes to, for instance, social media engagement, one of the challenges, the bugaboos for me is I always want to be authentic. So the idea that someone could be writing, like what I will not outsource is someone responding to a heartfelt question I get on LinkedIn. I'm going to quit my job and I listen to you. Hey, Sally, will you write back to them? Because that doesn't feel right to me. But why I'm bringing it up is I think there's some piece of authenticity that people feel they're giving up if
Certainly.
what they think should be their voice and their thoughts is being handled by someone else. Would you agree with that?
I think that is a real issue, and you're zeroing in on the some key thinking associated with what should you outsource and what should you not outsource.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And in terms of authentic voice messaging stuff, I think that's a prime category for something to not outsource.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, I think you can make some inroads there. For example, if I have recurring requests, and I do, like in my inbox, like I think it's totally appropriate for, let's say, people pitching to be guests on my podcasts. I think it's totally appropriate to say, hey, here is the script and the template for the response when someone wants to be on the show.
Right.
It's like,
Because
hey,
it's
thanks so
not
much
so
for your
tailored.
interest.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your interest. Here's our process, and good luck, blah, blah, blah. Or vice versa, when I'm inviting someone to be on the show, it's like I have a similar perspective there in terms of, I think you've got great stuff. I think our listeners need to hear about it. And I think our show's pretty cool. So check it out and, tell us what your decision is. So I let one of my producers handle that for me. And it took a while, for me to let go. It's like, oh, I don't know. Does that seem like, oh, you're outsourcing this to your lackey because you're too busy and too good for me when I'm the big deal author that you want to have on and you can't even take the time with your own self? It's like, first of all, I don't think anybody's thinking that at all. I think they're just
They're
like,
thrilled to hear from
yes,
your team. I don't care if it's Joe, Sally,
totally.
you're right.
You know,
So
so
can I
I was like,
can
oh
I
yeah,
highlight this? I mean, this is a not nice, no, a not fluffy word, but sometimes you have canned responses.
oh sure,
And there's nothing wrong with that. If truly you're getting 1,000 of these requests or inquiries every 6 months, it would be absurd for you to recreate the responses.
certainly,
Use a canned thing, and of course tailor it if you need to, but give yourself permission that anything that you're doing to that volume probably doesn't need your exclusive touch. Is that right?
certainly,
Right.
absolutely. I think that's dead on. And so if there's things that show up again and again and again, and they aren't that super like personal or emotional, it's kind of more transactional. Like one of my other big ones is people want to write a guest post on my website.
What do you
We
do
don't really
about
do
that?
that. Well, we
I
so
don't
we
even
don't do
know
that.
how to. Do you write? I gotta ask. I get probably 10 of those a week.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't respond because I don't have guest posts, but then they keep emailing me. And
Mhm.
then I get mad. And then I write, they're like, just write no if the answer is no. Well, what do you think if I'm not responding 10 times? But I'll write, sorry, no, I don't take guest posts. What do you do with something like that that's somebody pitching you to do something for them over and over? How do you handle that?
Yeah. Well, I think for one, you can sort of automate that. I really like the tool
Oh,
Text Expander.
I'm writing it.
So if I type in a little abbreviation like semicolon no, it can expand that into a whole like sentence or paragraph. Like,
That you've
Kathy,
already
thank you
written.
so much for thinking about me and participating in your project. Unfortunately, at this time, I just don't have the bandwidth to dedicate whatever you want to put it. Like
And
your
you've
nicest
programmed
way of
that
saying
language.
no,
Oh, my
like
God.
it could expand like 3 characters into like 300
I need that.
characters. Or sometimes I've adopted the counter pitch, as I call it, in terms of like, hey, thanks so much for this. This isn't really something we do. However, if you're building out a campaign to try to reach backlinks, it sounds like you might benefit from exceptionally talented English speakers at an affordable rate. And my company, awesomepros.co, can accommodate you. And
Do you
so,
get business that way?
well, I haven't really done it at scale, but it also, I don't want to call this, not I don't think this is malicious, but I do get a certain bit of a glee in terms of like, you're pitching me, now I'm pitching you. But I really do believe it's like, no, if this is an important initiative that you're undertaking, is this outbound outreach for, link building and exposure, it's like the odds are good that you could be doing this more cost effectively than you are currently. And I've got some people who could help you out with that. So I think it really is a value add, and
Love it.
sort of actually is nicer than be like,
No.
buzz off.
Oh, Pete, you're hilarious. All right. So I think we're sharing, folks, what are the common reasons we are blocked in having someone else do something. I also think, in talking about it in a more therapeutic way, what I see is people thinking that they're less than if they can't do it all. And I want to say to you that is not accurate in a business setting, and you're going to get crushed. You're going to get drained. You're going to end up really hating the thing that you thought you're going to love, because if you're trying to do all of this, it's just not possible. Like, let's say launch a podcast and make it successful. There's so many parts to it.
Right.
That if you really think you're going to do it all and can consistently do it all at a very high level, you're really going to set yourself up to fail.
Absolutely. And just to be real about, hey, what are your strengths and what are your limitations? I mean, like if your strengths happen to be at every stage of the podcast episode production life cycle, I don't know whose are, then yeah, maybe that makes sense to do it all yourself. But I mean, odds are there are folks who can get down and dirty with them audio programs, Isotope RX8 Advanced using the Deplosive module, like all this stuff that you don't have a clue about, they can do masterfully and faster than you. And depending on, what folks pay for your time, potentially much more cost effectively. I think I had Michael Hyatt on the show. He had a great example
Oh,
in terms of he was sharing with someone about, like, doing your own website. And so he was chatting with a guy and he said, I kind of know how to do websites a
oh
little
boy.
bit. And he said, okay. And so he was sort of reluctant to outsource that to someone else. He's like, okay, so you kind of know how to make websites, or, you could pay someone $50 an hour for a website. Okay. And what would you charge a client for coaching or whatever? And he's like, about $100 an hour. He's like, okay, so you're going to pay a guy twice as much who doesn't know as much about making websites yourself, as opposed to this other guy
Interesting.
who knows much more. And so then the light bulb aha moment kind of clicks on. Is like, yeah, it is just a lot more sensible for someone else to do this, because they'll do a better job at a better price than me hiring myself to do it.
I love it. And I thought you were going to say, oh, you kind of know how. Would you hire a plumber who kind of knows
Oh
how to
yeah.
fix your, leaking toilet? I don't think so. All right. Now, what people are going to say, I have a gift of knowing what listeners are going to
Mhm.
say while they're listening. Yeah, but I don't really have the money. I'm just starting out with my podcast. Do you have anything to say about the financial reason we don't outsource?
Oh, sure thing. Well, and I think when it comes to, we've got time and we got money. And I think you just got to take a good look at, where are you right now? Like, do you find, maybe I remember in college, I had plenty of time and not a lot of money. So that was the right move, is that for me to do a lot of things myself. I think a lot of real estate investors go through this same journey in terms of like their first property. It's like, okay, I don't have much money, but I've got some time. So let's learn drywall. Let's learn painting. Let's learn a little bit of plumbing. And so, but then over time, it's a different ball game. So I think that's the thing, is you want to take a clear inventory of, given your income and your expenses financially, and then sort of how you're spending time and what are the demands of your time right now, to see like that might be appropriate for you. But I also just encourage you to, maybe you might be overestimating, just what it takes to get some good help. And so, not to be Mr. Pitchy over
Let's do
here,
it though.
but
Let's talk about what would I expect to get a VA, a virtual assistant who can help with the administrative or whatever levels you all work
oh,
with.
sure thing.
Let's talk
Well,
about
you can find price points up and down the aisle. I have
it. Mm,
I have spent over $100 to have 10 seconds of audio edited before. But that was high stakes. And there was an
wow.
error, a background noise that had to be out. That's exceptional. Most of the
Right.
time, well, my company, awesomepros.co, you can have exceptionally talented English speaking folks from developing nations help you out with any number of tasks at about $12 an hour.
Wow.
So they're smarter than the average US college graduate, and they have their different bits of expertise.
They're
And so
smarter than the average US graduate.
oh yes, I would say fresh college graduate. Like,
Wow.
like I've hired interns from Northwestern's journalism program, and I found that the folks I've hired in developing countries like the Philippines, after going through my selection process, were actually sharper, better writers.
Really?
So it's possible if you got the patience. Hey, you can find these folks yourself and
Right.
not pay my markup. I had to do a lot of trial and error to figure out how the heck to do this, to
Wow.
find amazing people and sort of pass them through all the filters and the tests and such. But
So people come to you, Pete, who say, okay, I'm really ready for an online business manager. Can you help me? And then you do the selection process. Is that how that works?
that's right. Yeah. So we have a quite a robust selection process for our folks. And we're mostly just looking for folks who can read, write, think, and type very well. So they've got sort of a general smart skill set that could be deployed to, writing content
Wow.
or doing outreach or lead generation or any number of things along those lines. So when it comes to audio editing, we can do that too. Although it's not so much that we've got folks with like a brilliant, composer's audio engineer's ear, but rather, they just know a lot about, hey, what sounds good and what doesn't sound good and how to run the software and
Wonderful.
rock the checklist and the protocol so that, you get it done. And so then that's more affordable, if you wanted like the most delicious sonic
Yeah.
storytelling
Well, of course not.
experience, try to get a Grammy award winning, sound designer on your side and, rock it that way. But I think that's the scoop is like, you know, you got your cost and you got your quality and you got your qualifications and your time, and you're always just sort of thinking about the trade-offs. And that's just my main invitation for folks is to don't just knee jerk assume, oh, how do I get it all done? It's like, how does it all get done? And where is it appropriate for me to do it versus a super genius professional specialist, you know, doctor, lawyer, accountant, or composer versus, you know, just a pretty smart person that can live in any nation and can learn it and do it.
I love it. You know, I'm sitting here, excuse me, thinking about myself. I really resisted. I bet you'd have a lot to say about this. I was a marketing person for 20 years, not digitally, but direct marketing when we were sending out, you know, brochures. Oy. But honest to goodness, internally, I felt like I need a strategic marketing person to help my business grow. And I would hire agencies and expensive. And I never really felt I got the full picture, what I really needed. And I'm guessing there was some limiting belief there, you know, that how can it be that I've hired quite a few of agencies and it's not coming? But when I finally found the person, I can't tell you what a relief it is. And not only a relief, you're going to have a better product when you
Yeah.
have someone to take all that weight off you that you don't want, who actually is better at seeing a bigger picture because you're so in the weeds. Like, this isn't just a kind of nice to have. It's, if you can afford it, it's so important to get that kind of help that you really need. I mean, I feel like probably I wasted a few years trying to scale in the wrong way because I didn't have the right strategic help. Does that make sense to you?
It absolutely does in terms of the quality as well as the quality of your life. And
Right.
are you exhausted and stressed and running from thing to thing to thing and never quite feel
Right.
that you're getting it done on time or as well as you'd like it to be versus are you like, oh, okay, they've got that handled.
Oh, it's so
Huh,
good. It's so good.
what big strategic thoughts am I going to go have now?
It's really true. When you're not in the weeds, you can really see it, see the sky. All right, I got to ask this question. How did you morph from that work, running this business that, you know, lands great outsourcing sources, to what's the connection between that and your podcast? What was the idea that you
You know, it's
had to
funny.
launch this?
You know, it's funny that it started with the podcast in terms of I started doing 3 episodes a week.
Before
Just
you had your
yeah.
outsourcing firm? It
and
started there?
and I thought, man, this is a lot of work. And so I was trying to find, okay, I need some help. And so I had my audio editing outsourced, but I thought, you know, there's a lot of like thinking word work to be done in terms of what parts of the interview should be stay versus go. What could be some perspective titles and some teasers for this? How can we sort of sift through many potential guests and pitches? How can we get sponsors? Like all these things. And you know what? I had some experience hiring folks in developing nations at great prices. I thought this is really cool, but normally it worked great for sort of like follow a process or do some data entry or research things, but it didn't work so well for, you know, write amazing English, you know, as well or better than I can. But then, you know, I just had this stubborn streak in me, which said, you know what? There are brilliant people in nations all over this world, some of which can go quite far on the dollar for your living wage. And I am actually seeing English language newspapers with writing I think is good coming out of other nations. So by golly, someone over there is writing for them. How do I get them writing for me? and so that was sort of the beginning of the journey in terms of it's like, okay, anybody who's written for any of these publications, you know, come one, come all, please apply.
Wow.
And then I just sort of started filtering, and then I started finding some amazing people
Wow.
who were helping me out at a great price. And then I had some friends like, hey, so do they have any extra time on their hands that maybe I could get a few hours? And it was like, oh, well, funny you should ask. Let's see what we can build out here.
Wow, look at that. This is a sensitive question. If you want to pass, pass. But have you ever heard the objection, no, I want to keep all the work that I generate here in the U.S.?
Oh, sure. Well, actually,
I'd love to hear your thoughts on
I
this.
haven't heard it specifically geared toward what we're doing, but I've heard it more broadly,
Yeah.
And so here's,
Yeah, I'd love to
I
hear
think
your
in terms
thoughts.
of ethical considerations, here's how I'm thinking about it. Firstly, it is absolutely crucially important to us that we pay a living wage to anybody who's working for us, so that they're able to provide,
Mm,
food, healthcare, shelter, etc. For them and their families, and not like we're objectifying or like exploiting someone's
right.
misfortune for our benefit. So that's number one, is that the person we're hiring, no matter where they are, is getting a wage that is strong and in fact better than many of their alternatives. So they think this is a sweet deal. I love it.
Wow.
So that's first. Now,
Right.
in terms of the work,
Yeah.
and is it in the U.S. and is it elsewhere? You know, at our particular price point, what's interesting is it's almost it's very challenging to find, in my experience, folks who can do this caliber of work and accept $12 an hour in the United States. That happens, in my experience, almost never, and for brief periods. Like, oh my gosh, there's a genius intern, and we have 3 blissful months together.
And off they go to,
Yeah, and then
creating
they
the
get
next
hired by
app for.
Goldman or McKinsey or Google. And it's like, okay, well, that was nice while it lasted,
Right.
you know. So, or there's just a project that someone says, you know what, this is just really interesting to me, and I'm willing to do it almost for free or close to free, just because I want to develop the skills and the learning and scratch that intellectual itch. So that's the story. Is like it's like you almost can't get it here.
Yep.
And I'm sure maybe if I looked super hard or tapped some new pools, I might be able to find it. So that can happen. And I think ultimately, at least where I come out, is when I was in college, I took a trip to China
Mm.
with my academic minor, and so we sort of learned about, hey, business in China, what's going on, and I just walked away in terms of just thinking about, and we all have a different take on this, but if we think about the global human family and condition, it's like, there are folks who need opportunities everywhere, and it's like, if and in
Mm.
some ways, and I haven't really sorted through all this,
I know
ethically, morally
flung it
myself,
at you.
but in some ways it's sort of like, if the same wage allocation could support 3 families instead of 1 and result in 3 times the output or 3 times the quality, then is that a better use of resources on the global stage? And I'm leaning towards yes, and I'm sure there's all kinds of moral reasoning perspectives like subsidiarity, et cetera, that we could operate from. And so that's my story.
I
I
love
think
it.
about it, I wrestle with it, I pray about it, and my conscience is clear. And we'll see if we run into any trouble
I
that
love it.
we need to tweak.
I think it's a global perspective that we're all on this planet doing our best.
Yeah.
Uh, I love it. Thank you for being honest about that. One final question, which I got to know about. How do you show the new onboarded person what you want from them and the work that you want,
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than tell them, let me know, because I bet I blew it already?
Oh, that's so good. Well, I was chatting with a coach once, and I don't know where he got this, but he had a great frame of reference. So I'm going to give you a
Great.
conceptual thing and then like a tactical thing.
Ooh.
So he said, when you outsource something, it's not so much like you just say, here you go, it's yours. But he sort of called it sort of 5 stages to enablement. And the first stage was, watch me do this. It was like, okay, you're not doing anything. You're just watching me do the thing. And so in so doing, you're kind of learning what's going on. And then the
What would
second
they
stage.
watch? Give us an example,
So
Pete.
let's say I am, it's like, here's how I make a decision on whether or not I want a podcast guest to be on my show.
Wow.
Watch me do
That's
this.
like a teachable point of view. Noel
Yeah.
Tichy, leadership expert. Okay. Gotcha.
And so I'll say, I want 3 key things. I want relevance, I want authority, and I want engagingness. Here's how I define relevance.
Oh,
Here's how
wow.
I define authority.
Good
Here's
grief.
how I define engagingness. Kathy nailed all three, of course.
Sweet thing. I'm going to
and, and,
take that, but thank you.
and so then it's like, hey, all right, so now here's an incoming pitch. All right, we know what I'm looking for. We know we got an option on our hands. Let's go through it. How would I score this
Wow.
or view this? And so that's the first thing is like, watch me do this.
Wow.
And then the second
Keepers.
phase would be help me do this. So in terms of, it's like, I'm doing most of the work, but you're chiming in with a little bit of a help. So it's like, hey, why don't you go ahead and help me with the assessing their engaging perspective? Hunt down a few videos of them being interviewed or doing talks, and just kind of see, hey, what's that YouTube like ratio looking like? Are you moved and interested and intrigued by what they've got to say and are
Okay,
leaning in for
fantastic.
more? So yeah, you help me with that part, and I'll handle the other two parts. All right. And so then the third phase is like, let's do this together. It's maybe 50-50 in terms
Wow.
of, all right, so you give me the initial research phase of all the stuff, and then we're going to talk about it together in terms of how I might come to reach a decision based on those research inputs. So, third phase is let's do this together.
That's
And
incredible.
then the fourth phase is I'll help you do this in terms of
What?
you're doing almost everything, and I'm just chiming in with some little pointers and tips here and there.
Okay.
And then the fifth phase is I'll watch you do this.
I
Because
left.
I'm
I
just
left the
providing,
building.
I'm watching from afar and just saying, yep, that's good. Keep
Oh
it up.
my
And,
God.
and so in so doing, we've sort of gone down that bridge, in five distinct steps, as opposed to one huge anxiety filled, I'm letting go. Here's everything. Please don't mess it up. And so I
That's
thought that was very
so
useful.
good. And can I ask you, I mean, I always
Mm-hmm.
think, okay, am I doing this? I think I do this, but not in that linear way. And I think if I did it in that linear way, it'd go smoother and easier for everybody.
I think it is handy to have a framework or a name to things in terms of, hey, where are we on the five
Yeah.
stages? We're here and
Oh
we're
my
trying to
gosh,
move
I
it to the
love
next one.
that.
Yeah.
I think I got to do a Forbes interview with you, Pete, about
Ooh,
this.
I'm in.
Woo! We have to credit the guy who told you too. Can I ask you this? Now, people are thinking,
Yeah.
well, how long is that going to take? I need someone to get on board right away. I mean, we're not talking 8 months for this. It could be a matter of days and weeks, no?
Oh, sure. Well, and I think it really varies on what is it?
The complexity of it,
How
the
complex is it? How risky is it in terms of
right,
like how bad would it
right.
be if they screwed it up? And then how particular are you about it? And to what extent do you need to chill out versus does it really need to be that particular in those
Yeah,
ways?
right,
And so I think some things it can be done, pronto in terms of,
right. Okay,
hey, we got a pile of stuff, start cranking it. and
right,
I'll check in and see how that goes.
right.
And other things, bit by bit, although I think you can really accelerate it by, one of my favorites for watching me do this in a remote virtual world is Loom. It's
Oh,
screen
love
recording
Loom.
software. Oh, it's so good.
My team will say, okay, this is how you go into Infusionsoft and find the campaign. Da, 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 da,
Exactly.
da. Oh, there it is. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have it for life. And when I forget, which my mind does, I'm like, I'm going to go back to the Loom. Love it.
Totally.
All right, Pete, I kept you too long, but I got to ask this question. What did you do before the podcast and before the outsourcing business for a living? Can I
Yeah.
ask you that?
Sure. Well, immediately before that, I was doing, speaking and coaching,
What kind of
keynotes and
coaching?
workshops. It was interesting. It was specifically for people who wanted jobs in strategy consulting,
Huh.
prepping them for their case interviews, which is
Wow.
a
That's quite
process.
specific.
It is. But what's really fun about it is that we were just basically working problem. I kind of I felt like I was kind of almost like a chess coach. It's like, okay, we are playing a game of
Oh,
strategic problem solving together. Hope you're hiring me because you want to get the job, and I want you to get the job too. But even if you don't, I feel great knowing that we're developing a particular set of skills, for you to flourish whatever your career may be in
wow.
terms of thinking and problem solving. So yeah, I do a little bit of that here and there, but not as much. But and before that, I was doing strategy consulting myself at Bain.
Did you do that right out of college?
I did, yeah.
You got a prodigious mind, my friend.
Oh, well, I'm flattered.
I can see it. I can see that you, is it right? And then I'm going to let you go. You see a problem and immediately you're strategizing like a chessboard.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you think.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. That was so fun. What did we not cover about outsourcing? I think we covered a lot. And where does everyone learn about you? Check out your amazing business. Listen to your podcast. Where do we send them? Where do we
Oh,
send them?
thanks. Well, yeah. So to the first part, what have we not covered?
Yeah.
I would just say, with the showing versus telling,
Yeah.
I think that strategy consultants ask people to do a case interview, solve this business problem before me. Salespeople sometimes say, hey, sell me this pen.
Right.
Artists will sometimes say, let's see your portfolio. I think that's the name of the game when you're hiring, is that I want to get a sample of what you can do, maybe even paying for a work sample in terms of saying, hey, those 3 hours of work you did for me that I paid for were amazing. Let's do 300 more. Or
Okay.
you know what, they weren't. Maybe I'm going to find someone else. So I think that's the key rule. And then in terms of, for me, you can listen to How to Be Awesome at Your Job, any podcast app. Look for that yellow background and friendly gal. And then if you're interested in getting some help at a great price, we're at awesomepros.co, and you can find some of our awesome pros who can help you out.
I can't thank you enough. I learned so much. I
Oh, thank
really
you. I'm
love
glad.
this. I love it. And I just love every piece of it. What do you think, people? You ready to outsource? So, in light of the fact that we're saying Pete and I don't answer probably every email that we get because it's thousands, but I do think that hopefully if you have a question and you see this, I have a Finding Brave Facebook page, which I haven't been active on. I've been promoting the podcast everywhere else, but we're going to reinvigorate that page so that people can ask questions right there in one spot. I don't know what it took me 3 years to do that. But if you have a specific question, ask us and we'll do, tag us both and we'll do our best to answer. And I hope you will fly over to Pete's resources because I know just listening to you, I learned so much. I hope you're inspired, people. It's time to stop being a perfectionistic overfunctioner. It's time to close power gap number 3, reluctance to ask for what you deserve and you want. And if you really want to scale and let go of the burden and have more fun and have more reward, this is how to do it. It's time to stop doing everything yourself. Anything else, Pete?
I love all of that. Yes. Good luck and rock on.
All right, everybody. Hope you loved it. Have a wonderful week and see you next time.